everyone, Charlotte from New Zealand Shores, just bouncing in from my home office. Just got a few updates for you this week. We've got a update on where we're at with our lockdown in New Zealand. I've got a small update for you in regards to that border exemption process for teachers, and then just a small update on managed isolation or MIQ in New Zealand as well. So first off, lockdown, as it travelled around the world very quickly, everyone knows that New Zealand is basically in lockdown at the moment. We have moved from level 4 to level 3 for everywhere except the Auckland region. What that means is they're still encouraging people to work from home. However, cafes, restaurants can now do contactless delivery or click and collect. Same with retail shops. So we've got a little bit of normality back, but Auckland is still in that alert level 4. So that means for Auckland region, everyone is at home. Immigration New Zealand staff are not in their offices working, so that still does mean there is a hold on paper-based applications. So that's things like residence from work, the skilled migrant applications, variation of conditions, and some of those new streamlined essential skills work visa applications, which were initially paper-based. Those are all still on hold. However, they have now opened an online stream for those fast track essential skills work visa applications. So just a reminder, those were for people who are remaining in the jobs that they've been employed in for the duration of their current visas and are wanting to stay with those same employers. So under that new process, you don't have to provide new police clearances, you don't have to provide new medicals, your employer does not have to advertise, and you will get a 2-year visa at the end of that process. So that's good that that's now moved online, because that will quicken things up for some people. On managed isolation. So while New Zealand has been dealing with this latest outbreak of COVID, which has quite strongly affected the Auckland region, so I think today we're up to about 750 cases. Everyone is at home isolating, and those numbers are starting to come down, which is good news. So hopefully we're back to normal. But because there has been such a big outbreak in the Auckland region, they have had to take some of those hotels that they've been using for managed isolation and repurpose them as quarantine facilities for the individuals in New Zealand who have tested positive and their families. So they have put a slight pause on releasing and re-releasing rooms for managed isolation. That will probably continue until those numbers significantly start to drop, and they can start just solely relying on the initial quarantine hotels that they had. However, at this stage, we don't believe that affects either the time-sensitive allocations and applications for managed isolation, and it also isn't affecting emergency allocation. So that emergency allocation is mostly for our healthcare worker clients who can apply for an emergency allocation spot 14 days prior to travel. That process is still up and running. So if you are one of those people and you're not sure, or you're a bit confused about whether you can or can't still obtain a spot in managed isolation, reach out and we can give you some feedback on that. We've also had some communication from the Ministry of Education, as well as a teaching recruitment agency, who have been able to give us a little bit more information about that border exemption for 300 teachers. So we have learned that the process is being driven by schools and early childhood education centres. It's not being driven by us or the client, unfortunately. So what we've found out is the school will reach out to the Ministry of Education. They will find out whether they meet the criteria to be eligible. So there is strict criteria about which schools and centres are eligible to support an applicant. If they're given the go-ahead, at that point, they can start their recruitment campaign. So they will go through the usual process of advertising through the Education Gazette. We have seen 1 or 2 adverts already, which do state at the bottom that it's open to offshore candidates. So that is good to see that that process is starting to work. The school themselves will then also drive the border exemption request process. So that isn't something at this stage that we are involved with. So the school will handle that. Whether or not the school will handle your critical purpose visitor visa, which is the visa you can apply for after your border exemption request is approved, that bit of information is yet to be found out. However, if you are a current client and the school does take care of that critical purpose visitor visa for you, we can still be here in the background assisting assisting you, telling you, what documentation you need to provide and prepare and give to the school, and we can also help with those visas you apply for onshore, because it doesn't appear at this stage that schools are taking care of that process. So those are things like your essential skills work visa for you, a partnership work visa for partners if you're traveling with a partner, and student or visitor visas for children. So we will very much still be across that part of the process for you. It has also been advised that you will absolutely need to hold a current registration with the Teaching Council in New Zealand. Those are now valid for 3 years as well. So if you had put off obtaining that because previously they were only valid for 12 months, then you can actually go ahead and get that underway so that you are in a position to be able to apply for those roles that do become available for those teachers. And it is also a mandatory lodgement requirement for a visa as well. So Immigration New Zealand will not grant you either a critical purpose visitor visa or an essential skills work visa unless you hold that teacher's registration. Applications are due to open sometime this month, and the process we are still finding more information out on as we go through. So yeah, it is very much being drip fed to us, but as obviously as we get the information we will pass it on to you. So hopefully everyone has had a good week so far. We are all still working as per usual, even though, like you can see, some of us are sitting in our home offices and not in our usual office attire. But please feel free to reach out during usual business hours. Our advisors are still across phone calls, still across emails, and we can still submit visa applications. Immigration is still processing everything online. So have a great weekend, everyone, and hopefully I will be in touch next week with some more news or some more updates. See you later.